Big weekend here and a big weekend everywhere in the sports world, headlined by the Super Bowl, one of the biggest games of athletics anywhere, everywhere on the planet, and the Olympics soon to follow. But my name, Caden Colford, Jake Helton to my left, with a special guest soon to come on Last Call. We'll start with Greyhound sports, and more specifically, this men's basketball team that is currently playing with the best in the GLVC. It's making a statement amongst some of the best that D2 has to offer. You were in St. Louis as they played first the Tritons and then the Saints. What are you seeing out of the Greyhounds?
Talked about playing with the top of the GLVC. We'll get to that because the point system just came out. But this game was phenomenal. One of the best the Greyhounds have played all season. Yes, you can look at the record of Maryville. They're 2-20. They haven't won a conference game. And you can say, well, they're not that talented. I asked Coach Hetty, he had the same opinion I did. Those three players for Maryville, they are three of the best one-on-one basketball players out there. They can come off a pick and roll very well. They can shoot step-back threes. That's what they did. Just wasn't enough, and it's hard to put together one-on-one basketball for a full 40 minutes, and that's why Maryville kind of went on some stretches where they struggled to score the ball. But there's two things that I really wanted to point out of this game. Tyler Parrish went absolutely ballistic. 30 points, caught a lob off the backboard. He was shooting threes from basically Indianapolis, and we were in St. Louis. He was 6 for 9 from the three-point line and obviously finished with 30 points. He had 6 assists, and this is the second number I want to tell you about: 26 assists. It's new season high for the Greyhounds. They surpassed their high by 3. It was previously 23. They had 26 assists in this game. They moved the ball very well. They played well in transition. All-around win for the Greyhounds.
What I love about it is they saw a double-figure lead and they kept going. I'm listening to you guys, and Hounds just continue to pound Maryville everywhere, inside, outside. Tyler Parrish, 30 ball from TP, that's crazy. And off the backboard, the lob. Tell me about what you saw from Sean Arnold.
So what happened was they got a steal. Sean Arnold got a tap, and then he ended up getting it, and he was kind of, when he caught the ball, he was already underneath the basket. So we thought it was initially a missed layup. It was an awkward play, but we actually got confirmation from former sports information director Jacob Walton that it was a lob. It was intentional, and Sean Arnold kind of proved that himself. After he throws up the lob, Tyler Parrish comes in, 2 hands, front of the rim, slams it. He points at the bench and gets a technical, and we know all too well, you get a technical with Coach Hetty, you will not see the floor. So that was the end of Sean Arnold's day. He didn't end up playing for the entirety of the second half, but he did finish as one of the leader in pretty much every stat category. He only had 2 points, but he had 9 rebounds and 5 assists in just about 15 minutes played. Sean Arnold, all-around hustle player, even when he's not on the floor.
Solid outing from the Hounds, no doubt, and you're going to need that momentum heading into this upcoming week. Call it a gauntlet, or as close as you're going to get in the GLVC, with UIS and McKendree coming into town. You'll have McKendree Thursday and then UIS on Saturday. These are two of the best teams that the Great Lakes Valley Conference has to offer, and both of them are playing very well right now.
Well, I think we can go ahead and say it. UIS is currently at the top of the GLVC according to the point system that was released late Saturday night. We also learned that one team might have been breaking the rules just a little bit. McKendree has had to vacate 11 of their first games of the season, 3 of those being conference wins. And, they just had some points deducted. Their wins will still count towards records and stuff because the point systems are based off of the winning or losing in the record of the team. If they're above 500, you get more points. Below 500, you get some less points. But they were deducted points. That took them from first in the conference to 4th. So just 0.3 points can really affect you. The Greyhounds currently sit in 6th place, just 0.0002 points away from Missouri S&T, a team who they took down here in Indianapolis not too long ago. But one win right here might just guarantee the Greyhounds a playoff spot. The way that this bottleneck's kind of looking right now, Truman, Drury, Missouri St. Louis, they're fighting for that 8th spot, but it seems 1 through 7 is pretty locked in right now.
And it's not that you want to get complacent in the spot that you're at right now if you're Coach Hetty and these Hounds, but you set yourself up really, really nicely earlier in the season with a huge win against Rockhurst, a huge win at home against the ranked S&T, who was 16 at that point. You're going to play a ranked McKendree team who's 23rd in the country right now here in just a few days. You've set yourself up really, really nice to not go into this game with less of a competitive nature, but somewhat of a cushion, right? You're going to be at home This is a great opportunity to see yourself even higher in those standings, because right now, if the playoffs were to occur today, the GLVC tournament, Greyhounds see William Jewell. And it's not to be scared of William Jewell, but I don't know if that's what you want as your first-round matchup.
They did come in here to Indianapolis and take down the Greyhounds, and that's their one home loss in conference play. But you look at the big wins. McKendree on the road, that's 7 points. You look at Rockhurst and Missouri S&T at home, 6.5 points. These next two games coming up are both 6.5 points, or worth 6.5 points. So the Greyhounds win just one of those. Combined with what they have already done in the season, that's why we say almost a lock to make it. But a chance to maybe go 2 for 2 against McKendree, a chance to get your get back against UIS. They lost pretty badly in Springfield. I was there with Jason. It wasn't a pretty sight. They gave up the most three-pointers they've given up all season. It was it's now a chance for them to avenge that loss, show the rest of the GLVC they're not messing around.
A chance to do just that with just 5 games left in your season. It's crazy how fast it's gone. GLVC tournament starts March 5th. And Jake and I will no doubt be heading to St. Louis it's going to be at UMSL this year, the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and that's where all the action will happen. Last Call will have that action for you. That'll be right here. But until then, we have the Super Bowl to talk to up next.
Okay, guys, seriously, basketball and hockey have got to be the best sports around. Speed, skill, drama, 7-game series, they have got it all.
Nah, baseball is the best sport, and that's just a fact, Jace.
You guys are both wrong. It's 100% football. You guys need to get on the football train.
Everyone stop. Why fight now when you can watch us debate on Grand Slam Sports on YouTube on Fridays at 6 p.m. or on Xfinity Channel 1096.
Caden Colford, Jake Helton, the day after the Super Bowl, dreaded by many that stayed up until about midnight, 1 o'clock last night, celebrating a Seahawks win. And who would have thought the Seahawks of Seattle over the Patriots after a long, grueling season with Patrick Mahomes still in the league, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, our quarterback matchup last night, Sam Darnold and Drake May. What'd you make of it, Jake?
Well, I thought it was honestly a pretty boring game. Obviously, first half you get 3 field goals, not a lot of scoring being done, but then you get a little bit of action towards the second half. I think the most action was coming in the form of Kenneth Walker running to the outside. Even on plays that weren't designed for him to go to the outside, he would hit the middle, bounce it outside, automatic 10 yards. He dominated. He had 27 carries, 135 yards. I'd say at least 100 of those were on the outside. There's a run right there on the outside, up the sideline. I mean, a difference maker. There's a reason why he won the MVP. And you could also say that Seattle's defense played a big part in that. They limited Patriots offense, who hasn't necessarily seen this quality of defense. I know that they had to go through Houston and this, that, and the other, but I just don't think that the AFC put their best team in the playoffs. The Patriots haven't played much skill all year. Some are saying that this is the hardest game they played in 3 months. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see that they came out and struggled. The Seahawks came out and did what they said they were going to do. They said if Sam Darnold does not turn over the ball, they will win the game. He did not turn over the ball, and this game was not even close.
For the Seahawks to come out of the NFC, though, they didn't have the easiest schedule. I mean, they just beat the MVP and the Los Angeles Rams. I think it's unfair for a lot of people to say that the Seahawks did not earn a legitimate Super Bowl. But, Jake, the question I ask you is how? How did the Seahawks get to this point, and how were they able to take advantage?
I mean, it started in the offseason when they got Sam Darnold. Everyone was writing Sam Darnold off. He lost in the first round after having his best season with Minnesota, and they just tossed him out to the dogs. They said, we don't need you anymore. We're going with rookie J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, see how that worked out for them. They're not in the playoffs. Did not make the playoffs. Really didn't contend at all. So
last in their division.
Minnesota, the big loser of this game. But I think it started picking up Sam Darnold during the offseason, and he's a guy that always invested in himself. If there was a stock for Sam Darnold would own all of it, because he knows no matter how many interceptions he throws, this was actually on his scouting report coming into the draft before he got drafted by the Jets, said he throws too many turnovers, he fumbles the ball, but it doesn't matter because he's going to come back out and he's always coming. Next game, he's going to play harder, he's going to come back better, and that's exactly what he did this year. I don't care about the defense. I don't care about anything else. They say that the 4 things that you need to win a Super Bowl, good defense, got to have some weapons offensively, decent special teams, and you can't turn the ball over. Seahawks did all of that. You could take all of that away, and Sam Darnold for, 19 games out of this year led the Seahawks. Defense is just almost a cherry on top, in my opinion.
And, I think this was a coaching masterclass from Mike McDonald.
That's another thing,
in
absolutely.
his first year with Seattle, and here in the Super Bowl, didn't overcomplicate things. You saw the ball near the 40-yard line. You have a kicker that can make a good field goal. 15 points, 18 points from him last night, if I'm not mistaken. From the kicker spot, he broke the Super Bowl record for most points total by a kicker. So that's huge. That's where my money went last night. I had my money on the Super Bowl MVP being a kicker, which, was probably some bad money. But
there's an argument that it could have been. Those 18 points, the difference in it. But, all right, we don't have to talk about that. We can talk about how there were basically two different games played from half to half. The first half, you have two teams realizing that real estate is pretty hard to come by. They're not going to be able to get down the field very easily. The Seahawks understood that. They got in enemy territory. They settled for field goals. They had 9 points at the end of the half. The Patriots, they barely got across midfield. So when I look at that, I look at two different games. The first half, two teams just playing to keep it close. The second half, Seahawks get into the end zone. The Patriots are filling their backs up against the wall. That's when you see Drake May making the mistakes. The offensive line started to struggle. I say started to. They struggled all game. Seattle's defense arguably did better against Drake May than all of the other teams in the NFL combined. This is a great defensive performance, and why don't you give them the MVP? Obviously, Kenneth Walker, played a huge part in the offense, but defense won them. Defense wins championships, and that's what we saw this year. And I think that's maybe why the NFL wasn't getting as much talk this year, is because there wasn't a Joe Burrow throwing for 5,000 yards. There wasn't a receiver going for 2,000. There wasn't a Derrick Henry going absolutely insane. So I look at that as maybe part of the reason why we look at this Super Bowl as a boring one.
Yeah.
But all those defensive coordinators out there, Coach Keevers, I bet he was hyped to watch this game.
And really where I was going with the Seahawks, their way of play in this game, winning the Super Bowl against the Pats, they just seems like the more composed team by a mile. And I think that has a lot to do with their resume to this point, with their track record, with the teams that they played to get here, with their division through the regular season. That's not the easiest to go play in. I wouldn't say so. And to go out and play a defensive game and somehow still end up with 29 points, not bad at all. We talk about Kenneth Walker, though. While I wasn't happy with his nomination as Super Bowl MVP, I think it's 100% deserving. Even without a touchdown, consistency is key in the run game. 5 yards per carry, that's MVP numbers.
Absolutely.
5 yards per carry in the Super Bowl, absolutely.
The other thing you can look at defensively, if you want to go back to that, Drake May was the leading rusher, 5 carries, 37 yards for the Patriots. All-around domination. And I was telling you before we started this that we could sum up this Super Bowl in one word, 2 words maybe: Seahawks defense. That's all you need to know the outcome of this game. Seahawks did what they had been doing all year, and there were some people out there questioning whether Sam Darnold, he saw ghost against the Patriots a couple years ago. I saw that 1,000 times. This is 2026. This is Sam Darnold, Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold, who just led the Seahawks to all the glory.
Well, we've seen a lot that the Seahawks have been able to do. A first-year quarterback having success with a first-year head coach, a defensive-based football team. How do you see the NFL changing next season as a result of this right here? This wasn't a Super Bowl won by Patrick Mahomes or a running back necessarily like Saquon Barkley. This wasn't a superstar-driven game. It was a franchise that just found the pieces that meshed together, rolled it all the way through the season, all the way through the playoffs to a Lombardi Trophy.
Well, I think it makes you look back at guys like Bryce Young. I think you got to look at guys like Caleb Williams, guys who might not have started off exactly how they were projected to. Obviously, if you're a top first-round draft pick, you have expectations coming into the league. Sam Darnold didn't meet those expectations by any means. He found a good team. He found a good program in what some would say Kevin O'Connell's the quarterback whisperer. I don't know if you can call him that anymore after giving up Sam Darnold. But he was the one that I would argue got Sam Darnold's career back on track, got him going back in the right direction. Now he got with the team, got a good defense. All the pieces finally got put together. But going back to what I was saying, I think you look at those guys who might not have had a great start to their career and say, wait, maybe I get them in the right right quarterback room with the right coach, with the right defense, and maybe we can make a run at it. Another thing to look at is I don't think either of these two teams are going to make it back to the championship next year. I know there's a lot of teams that are saying there's potential, or a lot of the talking heads of sports are saying that there's potential that this could be a rematch next year. Nothing against either of these two teams. It is very hard to go back to the Super Bowl. You look at Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, what they went through.
That was a good team.
Exactly, and since then it's been pretty tragic. So I look at them, and I think it's going to be a tough road back, especially considering what we've talked about in the NFC. You've got probably 5-6 teams that felt as though they could have been in the big game and could have won the big game that are coming back hungry next year. So I look at two things. I look at the quarterback play. I think we're going to see a little bit of a change in the way that people aren't going to just discard quarterbacks. So I think for Indianapolis, I don't think you get rid of Anthony Richardson anymore. I think you keep him. If he's going to eventually work out, he has a finite amount of time. You can't give him 20 years to just sit on the bench. But if he starts showing improvement in practice, you start giving him opportunities, Daniel Jones will not be with the Colts forever. There's your next path right there. If he is developing correctly. That's the thing, though. Sam Darnold has been improving since the day he got into the NFL, and just now we're seeing it all come to fruition. If this would have happened last year, it might not have been as big of a deal, but for him to take a team to the top and then fall all the way back down and do it once again with a completely different team, he's the first quarterback to ever play for 5 teams before winning his first Super Bowl. So Sam Darnold has done things that have opened up opportunities for other quarterbacks who might have struggled at the beginning of their career.
Coaches, GMs, owners, all scrambling, and it all starts again next year. But for the time being, the Seahawks hold the trophy high. And as we speak on getting the wheels turning, getting pieces together, the NBA's trade deadline has just passed. Saw some big moves, saw some big names moved across the country, and we're breaking down the biggest moves on the market. Up next on Last Call.
Good morning, Greyhounds, and welcome back to your Wednesday show. We have some very exciting things to talk about with our very special guest.
So what do you find unique about UIndy, and what kind of pulled you here?
What are you doing?
Watching Good Morning Greyhounds every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m.
As the NFL season comes to an end, the NBA starts to pick up on their race towards the playoffs. Teams building to make their push. The trade deadline, where the moves happen. Caden, Colford, Jake, Helton. And as we talk some hoops, we have our NBA expert, Landon McQuitty, sitting just to the right of us to talk some trades, blockbuster trades at that we saw in the last few evenings. We'll start with one of the biggest names in recent NBA history, James Harden, making another move as he finds himself back in the Eastern Conference. He's going to Philly with Darius Garland traveling to LA to play against the Clippers. Jake, I know that James Harden has been a polarizing figure in the NBA. What do you think?
I mean, I love James Harden, and at face value, you're trading one of the best scorers for a very solid piece that Cleveland had. But when you dive a little bit deeper, you look at some of the problems that James Harden has had, you got to wonder, how does this guy not have a ring? Well, he went to Houston, they got Dwight Howard, that didn't work out. Then they got Chris Paul, that didn't work out. Or they might have had Russell Westbrook in between there as well, didn't work out. Then he plays for Brooklyn as the big three. That doesn't work out either. They barely played a single game together. He goes to the Clippers. The Clippers do everything that they possibly can to get him. I mean, him and Zubac, we'll get to them in a moment. That pick and roll was devastating. And that's part of the reason why I think the Pacers went for Zubac. They're going to get him and Hallie mixed up together. But James Harden has been he's been the bad roommate. That's what they're talking about on all the shows right now. He's been the bad roommate that says everybody else is the issue, but I have a feeling that James Harden is the problem. You're talking about a guy who needs the ball in his hand. So does Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell creates space. A lot of his shots are coming off of the dribble. How does he get off the dribble? How does he get in rhythm if James Harden has the ball for half of the game? I just don't see how this mix works as well. But for the Clippers, I think Darius Garland's a great pickup. They're going to let him go loose for the rest of the season, figure out what he can do and where they fit him in next year, or they might figure out who they're going to add to this team for next year, because this is a Clippers team that is now, I think, officially entered the rebuild stage. I don't know that you can say trading away your 4 best players are I don't think they're going to be contenders in the next 2 seasons or so. But you have Darius Garland. That's a starting point. And I think that's how the Clippers are looking at that. And they also got rid of James Harden.
Well, Landon, I want to turn to you and ask, first and foremost, is the criticism of James Harden fair? And then looking at James Harden, what does he bring the Cavs, and what do you think the thought process was behind for Cleveland?
I think the criticism is absolutely fair when you look at the track history of James Harden. He's went from team to team, and in the past 6 years, he's been on, I believe, 5 different teams, requested trades from each and every one of them. But the thing that he does is he makes the team better, and he really improves the center play. You just talked about, Jake, the play of him and Ivica Zubac. I think Jarrett Allen is going to take a big leap this year, and Evan Mobley, you obviously have been wanting to see him take a leap for the past few years now. He's had some offensive inconsistencies come playoff time. I think James Harden just makes his job and Jarrett Allen so much easier. But if I'm Donovan Mitchell, obviously a main ball handler, an elite player in the NBA, has been averaging about 27 points a game for maybe the past 5 years. But I honestly would just take a step back, let James Harden take over the reins a little bit. Obviously, an all-time great, 9th all-time in points, 12th all-time in assists, and he's most effective with the ball in his hands. And Donovan Mitchell has never played with a player of this caliber before. Prior to this, I would say his best teammate probably Rudy Gobert.
Probably.
And definitely not the same type of player as James Harden. I would actually say the opposite, very defensive-minded and very little offensive game. So playing with James Harden, I do think that it's going to take them a little while to get used to playing with each other, a lot of main ball handling skills, a lot of scoring skills, but I think this team could be scary come playoff time.
Another thing to add in there is the Schroeder. Schroeder's going to be coming in either a backup for either of them, and you put him at the 1 and either one of them at the 2. You're going to have spot-up threes just about anywhere you would like. So that's another thing to take into account with that trade that I think benefits Cleveland. But you're talking about a team that was this close to making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, they were a couple games away from beating the Pacers. So I just don't know why you blow the whole thing up, because I thought it was working very well, and that's what takes me to my next point. I think the Cavs were holding a grudge against Garland for being hurt in the finals last year. I mean, I don't think that's crazy to say that he was a star player, and I say that because you could compare his stats to Tyrese Halliburton, and that's kind of the thing I want to bring up. Darius Garland, outside of the assist, obviously Tyrese Halliburton, a much better passer. He was averaging over 10 assists a game last year. Last year, Garland was at about 5 assists per game, and then I think Halliburton averaged 1 more or 2 more rebounds. But you're talking about moving a very, very valuable piece. And I compare those two for the same reason that the Pacers weren't the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. Or the Cavs going to be the Cavs without Darius Garland. I think they're going to be able to move on, but it's not going to be the same team. You're not going to get the same style of defense, because I think Darius Garland also really helped out with Donovan Mitchell's defense playing there. You have 2 very defensive-minded guards, I feel like. But ball movement is going to be an issue, I feel like, for Cleveland. There's going to be a lot of the ball sticking in Donovan Mitchell's hands. Right. James Harden's going to go one-on-one, and I would love to see how they deal with using Jarrett Allen, because he hasn't necessarily been a huge pick-and-roll guy, kind of how James Harden would like. He's more of a dunker position. He's staying in the short corner. You dump it off, which James Harden has been pretty solid with. So I definitely have questions when it comes to that, but I think the bigger trade that we got to talk about is the Pacers one, because that's the one that everyone was, you either love it or you hate it. And I think that the people who hate it don't necessarily understand the thought process of the Pacers.
Well, this was no doubt a gamble. Landon, I'll turn to you. Zubac, the big man from LA, to, I'm sure we can say, look ahead for his time with Tyrese Halliburton and the rest of this Pacers team. What's the upside? What's the downside of this trade?
Yeah, a gamble is absolutely the right word to use for it. You look at this, really the picks protected to it, and you have a 2029 pick and potentially a 2031 pick. But if that pick falls between 5 and 9 this year, it goes to Los Angeles. Now, the Pacers, obviously in a down year without their best player in Tyrese Halliburton, so really haven't been very good, one of the worst teams in the league, and currently have about a 50% chance to get a top 4 pick. So it looks like the odds are in their favor to maintain the pick, but you just really cannot tell with the NBA draft lottery. It's very random. You see the Hawks, who were just out of the play-in a couple years ago, they got the number 1 pick, ended up winning the lottery. So you don't know where the Pacers are going to end up in this lottery. And if they end up with a 5 to 9 pick, I think this could be a really bad trade for Indiana.
That's what everyone's talking about, is if the pick is between 5 and 9, you lose potentially the chance to draft a generational talent. And if that goes to the Clippers, well, maybe they're out of rebuild already.
I'm a big fan of this trade for Indiana. I can't lie to anybody. I'm a really big fan because I'm a big fan of bigs, okay? I'm a big fan of bigs who can play the big spot. Pacers haven't had a center in years. Pacers haven't had a real center since Roy Hibbert, okay? Really.
Thomas Bryant?
Yeah, let's talk about Thomas Bryant. Don't even get me started on Thomas Bryant. IU legend, sure. Great guy, sure. But man, when I saw him step on the floor in the finals, I thought, oh my goodness, we need something to happen. This is that change. And he draws a lot of attention down low. He does have his ability to create shots one-on-one in the post, but that's not necessarily his game. His true strength lies in the ability to effectively run a high screen and roll with a guard like Tyrese Halliburton. And while that consumes all the attention at the middle, you're going to have guys like Pascal, guys like Obi, guys like Aaron Nesmith working on the wings that can cut, that can shoot, that can do a little bit of everything. I really enjoy this pick.
Well, there was a time last year where I was getting ready to ask our producer if I could do a breakdown on how James Harden does that pick and roll because it was so effective. Tyrese Halliburton can get half as effective as James Harden was coming off of that Zubac screen. I mean, we're talking about a championship. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's what they were missing, a big, someone to clog up the paint down low. Pascal Siakam, he can put his back to the basket, but he's doing a lot of that scoring from the mid-range. He's not getting down to the block, and you saw in that little mix that we had there, Zubac can put his back to the basket, he can stand down in the dunker spot, he can even come out and set that high screen at the top of the key, which is exactly what they need. If they get Tyrese Halliburton coming downhill, that's how he hit all of his game winners. That's how he gets a lot of his points. That's how he gets a lot of his assists. It just bolsters up this offense to a level above where it was already at, and that was championship level. So that's the step that takes them above the Thunder, the Spurs, the Cavs, the Celtics, whoever you want to talk about. This is the difference maker right here. We're going to be looking back, not this year obviously, but we're going to be looking back next year like this trade was the difference in the franchise.
But as there is two sides to every story, Landon, I want to turn to you one more time and ask what you give up when you give away Ben Mathurin as he makes his way to LA.
Yeah, Benedict Mathurin is obviously an elite player, and one of the biggest reasons why the Indiana Pacers even had a chance of making the finals. Came off the bench sometimes, started sometimes, but always provided a large scoring role to this team. Could give you 20 points any night. And obviously, there was a lot of discourse across the season with Benedict Mathurin's future being uncertain. People were unaware if he was going to stay with the team past this season. Just talking about free agency. So the Pacers deciding to do what a lot of people thought they were going to do, and they decide to trade him. And they do get a starting center, which is something, a rebounder, something you have not had since Roy Hibbert, you mentioned. But I think this trade, ultimately, I do like it for the Pacers because I do still believe that they will retain a top 4 pick. I think they'll keep the pick this year. And then you look in the future, if this year's pick is protected for the Pacers, you end up only giving away a 2029 unprotected pick and a 2031 unprotected pick. Tyrese Halliburton's going to be 29 to 31 in those years. Those would be prime Tyrese Halliburton's years. If the Pacers really get what they want, they won't be too worried about their first-round picks in those years. So I do actually like this trade a lot for the Pacers. And for the Clippers, it does give them a bit of scoring presence. You lose James Harden, an elite scorer, but you do get Darius Garland, but you're just missing a little bit of that offense. And I think Benedict Mathurin does provide it for you.
I think some would consider that a steal if the Pacers do get to make their pick. And I was talking to you before we got the show started. I feel like Ben Mathurin was almost the Drew Holiday of the Pacers. And we saw what happened to Milwaukee when they got rid of their Drew Holiday. Do the Pacers suffer the same fate? I guess we'll have to find out. But I do think that defensively and just in the locker room, this is a bit of a hit because I felt like Ben Mathurin was a big guy with the fans. I know we were both pretty fond of his game. I mean, he's got a different style of play than some other guards on the team. He's not just going to the basket. That's I think probably why I like the Pacers so much. You get TJ McConnell shooting that mid-range shot, and then you also got guys that are taking it to the rim. Ben Mathurin, he was liable to dunk on anybody.
Ben Mathurin, tough player. Sad to see him go. Landon, thank you for your insights on the NBA. We're going to stay right here, but it's now time for the Primetime Pick 'em. Jake and I head-to-head every week giving our thoughts on who's going to win which game. We start off our slates with the Thunder, playing the Lakers, the new and improved Lakers with Luke Kennard on that team. They give up Gabe Vincent and a pick at home. I think that makes the Lakers a little bit better than people might think. Lakers, before that trade, could not shoot the ball. Boy, if they caught it beyond the arc and it was not Austin Reeves or Luka, they stunk.
Well,
they stink.
You just said one of them. If Luka doesn't play, Lakers don't win. And last I checked, he will not be playing in this game. So Thunder are also dealing with a lot of injuries. I think they had probably the most players I've ever seen out in a game. They had 8 people on the bench playable in that game against the Spurs and still gave them a contest. I'm going with the Thunder. The Thunder are the best team for a reason.
Well, I like the Thunder, but with the Lakers and LeBron James, who was still on the floor, I think against a undermanned Thunder team, Lakers bring it home at home. And now that brings us to the game of the year. Kings versus Pelicans, baby. And I think it combined, 26, 25 wins on the season between these two squads. You have a geriatric Russell Westbrook and a Zion Williamson that seems to just fall out of the spotlight every time that he reaches social media, or fall into the spotlight in the wrong way. So, look, between these two teams, take your pick, Jake.
I'm going to go with the Pelicans just because they won this weekend.
Oh, well, that's a Super Bowl, but I don't know if they can do it twice. Doing it twice is different than doing it once. Russ, he actually just gave Cleveland a pretty tough game.
Brought out 15 and 4?
20 of them. 20 of them. That's my guy. Russell Westbrook is going to get this win against the Pelicans. Cavs at Nuggets. Our most recent game with the Nuggets at home. I like them against the Cavs.
I do as well. They said James Harden's going to be playing, and for the reason that I think it's going to be a while before they get that system going. I could be wrong. James Harden could come out and have 40. Donovan Mitchell could have 40, and it could be the best team ever. But Nuggets are just too consistent.
And I think they're too smart of a basketball team, headed by one of the most cerebral players in the league. I think there's too much to exploit if you're Cleveland. And now we're looking at two teams that want to lose more than they want to win. Pacers probably more specifically as they travel to play the Nets. Jake?
Well, for the fact that the Pacers should not win another game this season, if they win, they're doing something wrong. I'm going to go with the Nets.
I as well will pick the Nets over the Pacers. Fingers crossed. Clippers going to Houston on Wednesday night to play the Rockets at home. Rockets, it's Clippers team who are going to have a lot to put together. Darius Garland could have 37 and they still lose.
He could, and I think that Rockets played a very good game against the Thunder this weekend, and I think they're going to continue to kind of carry that forward. Kevin Durant's playing solid. I mean, he's obviously going to give you your 30 points every single game, but I don't think the Clippers have it together yet, and maybe their tank starts now with this game.
We'll see. That's the Primetime Pick Em. My name, Caden. That's Jake. And would we happen to have the records?
Well, I know that last week that I picked the correct Super Bowl champion and you did not. I don't know exactly about the NBA games, but I know we're going to have to add one win and one loss for last week. We had Super Bowl picks. Unfortunately, some technical errors. We were unable to bring you that episode, but
math pending.
math
I like
pending.
my odds.
We'll get it. We'll get it for you.
Look, this is last call. We'll be back next week.